That's half of it. Do you need, and I already touched on this one, do you work at your occupation because the government gave you permission to do that?
No.
Are you inside the taxing authority, or are you exempt?
Yeah.
All right, now, I wanted to I've hit those points. Am I getting too wacko for you, Trent?
Way too much.
I was afraid of that. But you know what? Didn't stop me. Now, let me look at, I'm going to show you something. I know you can't see the writing on this, but you can see the picture. By the way, I'm going to take it aside. And I have one section in here, I'm going to read this. Power to regulate payments from within U.S. to non-resident aliens and foreign corporations. And I call that the taxing authority of unknown ancestry. What I did was, to test this, I made a chart of the federal legislative authority. And I made a table on it. This green, that's where they have exclusive authority. The yellow, that's where they have authority over certain activities. You know, they're allowed to regulate interstate commerce. They're allowed to do all these things. They're only allowed to tell us two things. Don't commit piracy on the high seas, don't counterfeit money. And I don't believe that allows them to authorize their license to counterfeit money, but that's what they're doing. But that's what it looks like. Now, using McCulloch versus Maryland and all of these other cases, and this stuff is red, this is the outside stuff. Okay, it's exempt. They can't tax that. That's where 99, 44, 100% of us fall. So, I made a chart of federal taxing authority using McCulloch and everything else analysis. Guess what? You see these two? Do they look anywhere alike? Oh, it gets better. I took the statutes, Code of Federal Regulations. I took the statutes and I said, what of these statutes actually identifies taxed? What are they actually claiming in there? In the statutes, not in the regulations, not in publications, and not in forms. But the actual written black letter law. I said, what does that look like? So I charted that out. Same. Income tax is perfectly constitutional. They're right slap dab in the middle of it. They're exactly where they're supposed to be. The difference is that somebody is lying about who's liable. Somebody's lying about what income is. And somebody's lying about what they can tax. I'm not going to call any names, but its initials are IRS. Now, the first reaction I get from folks when I point these things out to them is, what are we going to do? I had one lady say, what about my garbage pickup? I know you guys are constitutionally minded, though. We're talking about people out here on the street. They think that everything's the federal government's job. You know, they strand themselves in New Orleans in the middle of a storm, and it's the federal government's job to come get their lazy butts off their front porches. Okay? And if you don't do it quick enough, you squeal. Well, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? You got to pay taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, the personal income tax comprises roughly 30%. And that's a stretch. 30% of the revenues. It's only one out of over 24 federal taxes. And no limitations on what the federal government can tax foreign commerce. No limitations on what it can tax the manufacture, sale, or consumption of goods. They have a right to tax that. No limitation on how much they can tax the exercise of corporate privileges. But they're not allowed to tax your rights at all anymore. They can tax you for your exercising your freedom of speech. And the Supreme Court has made it very clear that they cannot tax a right. It has to be a privileged activity. Well, whenever I was interrupted by indictment in 2006, I can't believe it's been that long. When I was interrupted by indictment, I was about halfway through a book I called Liberty Lost, Treasure Maps Buried Freedom. We're going to be dead one day, Mr. Congressman. There's going to be a time when all these youngsters here who've never seen a free country are going to have to try to find their way back to it. never having been there. This young man here, Trent, they wouldn't know a free country if it jumped up and bit them on the butt. Would they? As they've never seen one. We have. We remember. We remember. But, so I'm leaving a map behind for you guys. So I'm writing this book, and in the first of that research, I looked at the powers granted to Congress and the 2007 budget. Gary, would you do me a favor? Hand out that test. Connect the power to the action. Take this when you get home. I just want to give this to everybody. When you get home, take this. You remember the test in high school or even in grade school we had in our workbooks? You know, connect the two things that are related. Okay? I took the powers of Congress, all of them, put them in one column. I took just the departments headings of the 2007 budget, and I put them in another. And because I had some room left over, on the one other column, I added school lunch menus, there, connect the power for that one. Drinking age, connect the power for that one. Speed limits, mandate school bus, seating assignments, traffic signals, home loans, and baseball leagues. Find me a power on that left column for each of those two. Now, remember what I said, 30% of their money comes from the personal income tax. So, now, Gary, if you would, do we have enough to go around?
I'm gonna go back to my comments.
Well, if you have to, share these things. That's my whole, share them if you got a couple. Yeah, if you have a couple of his too, share them. Well, I need you to hand these out. No, don't interrupt me. I need to finish these people. Their time is, this is their time. This is their human capital. If you will, just double up on those, if I didn't make enough. All right, so what I did was I just tried to connect the dots. And I took those items on that list, and they're underlined, that I could not find any basis for a Department of Energy. Now, if you want to have a Department of Energy that is transferred to interstate commerce, yeah, but not Department of Energy. Agriculture and interstate commerce, I guess Florence straddles the state line. Department of Defense, I found fine. Department of Commerce, I found fine. Department of Homeland Security, I guess you can put that under defense. Justice Department, sure. State Department, Treasury, Veterans. You know, all those I found. Ones that didn't. Now, I took the budget headings and I moved the money out of those budget headings into a third column that I could not find anything for. Came to 56% of the federal budget. 56% of $3 trillion a year. And let me tell you what that $3 trillion a year is. In 1962, which wasn't that long ago, was it? No, not for us it wasn't. In 1962, all of the dollars in circulation in the world, all of the American money in the world was $281 billion. Every one of them backed by silver. This week alone, the Fed printed and pumped into circulation $400 billion. The annual budget of the government alone is how many times more? Now, does that mean that there's that much more wealth out there?
No.
Absolutely not. What that means is that those dollars have been diluted down. We're tricking ourselves into thinking we're getting nourishment, but the soup has been so watered down that we're just getting nothing. We're not even getting good broth.